Okay, so I'm Miranda, and I did Chapter 5 and Promoting Communication and Development. So to start off, you've got language delay, and then if the child develops normally in all areas except for language, or in language disorder, as defined by the American Speech Language Hearing and Association, an impairment in the comprehension and use of spoken, written, or other symbol system. The disorder may involve the form of language, the context of language, and/or the function of language for the communication in any combination. You've got receptive language, which is listening and reading, and expressive language, which is speaking and writing. And for language disorders, they are classified into two categories: primary language disorder or impairment, and a secondary language disorder. So, a primary language disorder is present when language differences cannot be accounted for by peripheral sensory deficits, such as hearing loss, a motor deficit, such as a cerebral palsy, a cognitive deficit, such as mental retardation, a social impairment, such as autism spectrum disorder, or a harmful environmental condition, such as lead poisoning or parental drug abuse. And a secondary language disorder or impairment is one that is associated with the presumed to be caused by factors such as sensory impairments or cognitive impairments. Communication development in infants and toddlers. There are six stages of children's early vocal development: reflexive and cry vocalization stages, cooing and gooing stage, expansion, reduplicated of canonical babbling stage, varied or non-reduplicated babbling stage, single words production stage. And that can be found on page 118 to read more about. Cognitive correlations of early communication development. There are 5 cognitive abilities that are linked to early communication development: imitation, object permanence, causality, means ends, and play. Caregivers need to provide infants and young children multiple opportunities to practice and refine their vocal, gestural, and social communicative behaviors. So, to help with speech, children can get a speech language pathologist, which is a SLP. There are 2 models in communications commonly used for assessment of young children. And there's the traditional, which is more static. Commonly used, the traditional model of traditional assessment is a developmental approach. It mainly focuses on age expectation and social norms of the age group. Checklists are used to represent the age referred or milestone information. And then dynamic is the second one, and it incorporates intervention into assessment. It involves a specialist who examines children in their daily routines. So the dynamic assessment approach involves observing the child during 1. Their daily routine, interacting with their familiar people, while manipulating objects, during play, determining the strategies that may optimally stimulate the child to communicate at a higher developmental level. And so, communication intervention with young children. Ramey and Ramey made a set of principles for specialists involved in programming for young children with communication delays or disorders. Early intervention and length of time it continues. Program intensity. Effective programs provide services to children and help train their parents. Programs that address the needs of children and the family. Not all children will benefit equally from the services provided. And environmental support. General approaches to communication intervention. SLPs offer direct and indirect services. So a direct service is SLP provides services to the child, and indirect services is the SLP trains others to provide services to the child and to the child's family. SLPs employ 2 basic approaches: naturalistic and direct. So a naturalistic approach is based on the assumption that young children learn to communicate with speech and language in different ways in daily activities, and that intervention is best conducted within the context of a familiar situation. Direct is based on learning principles as defined in behavioral psychology incorporated into natural settings. Communication development in toddlers. Language impairments become apparent when children are about 2 years old. Late talkers are children who fail to meet the linguistic milestones, and delayed phonological development and delayed lexical or vocabulary development are the hallmarks of late talkers. The difference between a late bloomer is that they make progress in vocabulary development by their second birthday. Phonological processes, specific strategies to simplify the production of words. So its consonant cluster reduction is reducing to one consonant. Weak syllable deletion is omitting unstressed or weak syllabuses. Gliding is substituting glides for liquids. Final consonant deletion is omitting the final consonant in words. Assessment of language delay in toddlers. Play-based assessment, communication-based assessment, parent questionnaires, comprehension assessment, language samples. Strategies for promoting communication are script therapy, used to teach, target communicative behaviors within daily routines, and play-based therapy. Parents or professionals use toys and play to teach skills. Communication development in preschoolers with specific language development. Specific language impairment is children who exhibit language impairments at the age of 4 years or older. Limitations in their pragmatics is the ability to engage in conversation, the ability to engage in peer interaction, the ability to adjust their speech and language styles to the listener's age, social status, and language ability, the ability to listen and follow instructions, the ability to tell stories. Limitation in phonology, morphology, and syntax. Their use of grammatical morphemes is limited, often omit the morphemes, and make grammatical errors. Limitation in semantics. Speech errors that tend to be semantic in nature. Low performance or lexical comprehension tests are tasks focusing on multiple levels of noun hierarchies, word finding difficulties. Primary age students with language impairment. Language learning disability does not stem from cognitive deficit or gross neurological deficit. Children with LLD can be expressed in the following areas: speaking and writing, and then difficulties following areas in receptive language is listening and reading. So my discussion question is, what are some challenges children might face if they have a language disorder, and how can a caregiver and/or teacher help them succeed? Thank you for listening.